I want you guys to come out to Lockhart, Texas, September 6th through the 8th of this year, and we are going to hang out. We are having our second annual Philip Ludwell III Orthodox Fellowship Conference, and check out this lineup of speakers. Alphonse Venn, Dr. Don Livingston, Father Filaret, Father Joseph Honeycutt, Jim Jatras, Ben Dixon, Father Peter Heers, Dr. Clark Carlton. We are also having a VIP reception where I will be doing a live broadcast of the Counterflow Podcast. My guests will be Father John Whiteford, Conrad from the World War Now podcast, Jim Jatras, and none other than the lady herself, Dissident Mama Rebecca, will be on with us as well. It's going to be a great time. Again, it's going to be September 6th through the 8th. It's our second annual Philip Ludwell III Orthodox Fellowship Conference. For more information, please go to southernorthodox.org and check out their events page. Come hang out. Let's do this.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in half, but I call the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back once again to the Counterflow Podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you from Lockhart, Texas. As always, what an episode this is. This is a wild journey. I'm okay with hating the term journey and yet still using it. I'm still going to do that. There's not a lot of better terms to describe what my guest, Elias Sanders, and myself, and many of you have gone through other than journey. I'm sorry. But very often I get people reach out to me. It's often publicists. Hey, I've got a client that would be good on your show. And it's not usually spot on, if you will. It's more like 10% of their content will be interesting for you guys. So often I either ignore them or turn them down or whatever. Well, this gentleman heard our chat with Shane Swenson, friend of the show, the 2-part series we did with Shane a few episodes ago. And he reached out to me and he said, I think you might be interested in hearing my story as well. He was raised in the Assemblies of God, was a youth pastor, did 10 years full-time with Charles Stanley. Then he became Orthodox, and then check this out. He deconstructed his faith and renounced everything. And for 12 years, he was into the occult, the left-hand path, free thought, thelema, Satanism, atheism, etc., etc. All's well that ends well, though. He's back as an Orthodox Christian, and he's here to talk about the temptations, the craziness, the stuff to look out for in this type of crazy journey. And it's out there. I will say my spiritual father, Father Turbo Qualls, and Cyprian and Andrew on the Royal Path podcast, which is an amazing show if you've not heard it yet. They recently did a show discussing the occult and the Church of Satan. So there's many ways in which they attack us, and the ways they focused on in their episode, very often the Church of Satan types will try to present themselves as almost like squares and business type people. Like, we're not crazy, worshiping blood and doing rituals or satanic things that you would picture in a horror movie. We're just normal. We're almost kind of squares. And so that's one front in which they attack. The stuff we discussed today is quite a bit more crazy. I mean, it's not graphic where it's going to scare you off, but however, we get into death metal and heavy metal and some of the ways in which these things manifest themselves. And so it's very, very interesting episode. I just wanted to kind of qualify it with there's plenty of ways in which the Church of Satan and the demons, etc., manifest all kinds of evil. So without further ado, first time on the show, Elias Sanders. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Doing great. It's hot here in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, it's not too different here in Lockhart, Texas. It's too hot. I should tell people up front, you reached out to me, and that happens, I would say, once a week. Either a publicist, it's usually a publicist says, and it's kind of a generic form letter, my client would do great on your show, and it's usually not. It's usually something very peripheral that's like the banking sector or something, I don't know. But So usually I'm like, no. And I saw yours and I was like, wait a second. There's so many intriguing aspects of what you've done in your life. I thought, you know what? Yes, let's get Elias on, Eli. And so I'll let you give an intro for yourself. We'll just kind of do a broad, paint with broad brush, if you will, and then we will get down into the weeds because there's a lot of wild things to get to.
Okay, in 2004, I converted to the Eastern Orthodox Church. I spent 10 years in ministry with Charles Stanley in Atlanta. I had a close relationship with Dr. Stanley, had a key to his home, had dinner with him many times. When he was sick, I brought in fig Newtons. And I met an Orthodox priest at In Touch. His name is Father Barnabas Powell. You may have heard of him. So I was only 23 years old. I was raised King James only, Assemblies of God, Church of God, very sort of naive and immature and judgmental about liturgical churches. And so when I met Barnabas, I judged him immediately. I just thought, what's Dr. Stanley doing with a Catholic working here, But Barnabas had charisma and a lot of theological knowledge and always had a hunger for theology and ministry. I was raised, like I said, very strict in the Assemblies of God. My great-grandmother would bless the food and start speaking in tongues and prophesy. The food would get cold. I had a dramatic born-again experience when I was 13 and always felt a calling to the ministry. Did 2 years in ministry in the Assemblies of God in Peachtree City, Georgia, right outside Atlanta. And after being disillusioned with the ministry and reading all the new atheists, Richard Dawkins, I even met some of them too. All this was happening in some things in my personal life too. So I became disenchanted, very frustrated with media, business, ministry. And so I sort of deconverted, got a secular job at the Weather Channel in Atlanta. And it was the first time I ever heard women use profanity because I'd been in ministry all those years. I'm in the control room at Weather Channel and women are swearing and cursing. And my innocence was destroyed. Didn't take long for that to happen. But I was reading, Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And I was a member of the Clergy Project too. I gave talks at the Atlanta Free Thought Society. I met Bart Ehrman. I met Dan Barker. And when I left the ministry, I just felt like I needed a secular career. I felt like I was trapped in the ministry and I was sort of deconverting. And my ex-wife hated the Orthodox Church. Our worst arguments were over Orthodoxy.
Oh my. Okay.
The worst argument. Oh yeah, it was brutal arguments. It's not, and I'm not the only one. I hear this.
No, you're not. I have people.
Oh my word.
People listening that are in communication with me that's not uncommon.
It happens. I hear it all the time. And we were at Church of the Apostles, and we met when I was 18. But make a long story short, so I got very angry and resentful at the ministry, not at Orthodoxy. I've always loved Orthodoxy. But I sort of walked away from it all. I felt like I had never really experienced life. Other people I knew had slept around, drank, smoked. I didn't do anything. I was kind of like the guy from I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Very naive, very innocent. Waited until I got married, with my ex, and every I dotted, every T crossed. And so I was reading the Satanic Bible, listening to Zena LaVey, and they said you should indulge, not abstain. And reading all the Nietzsche book, tons of Nietzsche, read it in German, translated it myself, and read all of Darwin, Robert Ingersoll, and they said you should indulge. You only live once. Satanism represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Do what thou wilt. So that's Aleister Crowley. So I lost everything in 2012. I met a biker club in Virginia, and the founding members were there's a biker cult, KULT, and the founding member's dad is an Orthodox priest.
Wow.
So my mind was blown. Here I meet these giant, tatted up, bikers, riding Harleys, listening to Marduk, Emperor, and more all this satanic black metal. But they like Father Seraphim Rose.
Oh, okay.
And I was blown. So this is after all my deconstructions, this is after all my resentment. And I meet these guys in Virginia, and they're like wearing Death to the World t-shirts.
Okay.
And doing ritual. And I'm like, whoa, maybe I missed something. Maybe there is something pure about Orthodoxy. There's something legitimate and pure and noble about Orthodoxy, because these guys, their dad is a priest in Lynchburg. And so to make a long story short, I still was very resentful and bitter at the ministry and the financial mismanagement I saw and the scandals. And I could spend a whole hour talking about the things I saw at In Touch. Not Charles Stanley himself, but the marketing and all the stuff that goes into the industry.
And that was
really,
Assemblies of God stuff?
No, it was In Touch.
What is that?
In Touch Ministries, Charles Stanley's ministry.
Okay. And who is he for the people listening that aren't familiar?
He was the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, the pastor of First Baptist in Atlanta, Andy Stanley's dad.
Okay.
So I lost everything in 2012, and I meet these guys, and then I got married in Salem in a black mass.
Wow.
At the Satanic Temple of Salem. I met all those people there and spent a week. And they had the high priest. It's too graphic. I don't. But we had to drink her breast milk, and that we were blindfolded the whole. And then at the end, they brought a goat out, and I was just indulging in all this resentment and hate. And Zena LeVay in this documentary with Geraldo said, if you want to hate all you want. There's no such thing as sin. If you want to sleep around, there's no guilt. Indulge. Do what you want to do. And so I carried that attitude with me everywhere I went. Wearing Morbid Angel shirts. Angry all the time. Bitter, resentful, selfish, narcissistic. And I did a lot of sacrilegious things. We had like a coven here. And I exposed my kids to all this stuff, got tattoos myself, because what we do as pastors' kids, we rebel like Christians do. So we overindulge because we've restrained ourselves for so long. And discipline, I'm all about that, and holiness and purity. I love all that, totally. That's what I want for my kids. But look at these people who deconvert, like, Jerry DeWitt. They all rebel, and then they overindulge, and they end up hurting and harming people because they sin like Christians. So that's what I did. Overcompensating. I sin like a Christian. I'm not good at it. So my resentment, I'm coming to the end. My anger and resentment. I remember one day we were at Home Depot, and I'm wearing like a Morbid Angel or Slayer t-shirt, and the grannies at Home Depot are running away from me, scared.
Yeah.
And I thought, what am I doing? I wasn't raised this way. I'm bringing shame to my family. These people are running away from me at Home Depot because I'm so angry all the time. And that music's angry.
Yeah.
The death metal, the black metal. I even met the drummer of Mayhem, Hellhammer. We talked about how much we hate people.
Oh my.
He has some of the same tattoos here. Some of the runes. Well, that doesn't make me a special person, by the way. Just because I meet these people, that doesn't mean I'm any better than anybody else. But when that happened at Home Depot and I went through another divorce, I thought, I'm doing something wrong here. And this hate is isolating me from everyone in my life. This resentment and this chip on my shoulder. Well, one time I heard an interview with Marduk, and the interviewer asked the guitar player Marduk, if you could be a god, which one would you be? He said, None of them already am of God.
Mm.
That's the attitude I had.
Yes.
So just think about if you were married to somebody who every day walked around like Nietzsche, pissed off, angry. I am a God. I am the Übermensch. It drives people away. It's resentment. And so I had a moment of self-reflection. I went to the monastery in Roswell, Georgia, St. Mary of Egypt. And those
That's
monks
appropriate.
there.
That's an appropriate one.
So yeah, I knew that Orthodoxy was the true faith through my own education and experience I was a reader in the OCA for 5 years. And I had to make amends to everyone that I offended over the years. That I'm still making amends. Because all that resentment hurts people. But Xena and all those Satanists, they resent all you want. Why should you apologize? Only Christians apologize. Don't be a sheep. Don't apologize. Don't make amends. That's what Christians do. You're the Übermensch, remember? You're a wolf, not a sheep.
Yeah.
So for over 10, 12 years, that's what I fed into my soul, and it poisoned me. It drove everybody away. So I had to make amends. I went to the monastery and had a 2-hour confession. They hugged me. They gave me love and grace. Love and grace, no judgment. And so for almost 2.5 years, I've been back in the church, repented. And it's a daily thing, day by day, we repent. And I can't repent enough for some of the things I did, some of the harm I caused. My godfather, Barnabas, I broke his heart. My best friends, some of the priests of the OCA are there because of me. I met them in Bible college. I broke their hearts. But remember what Xena LaVey, Anton LaVey's daughter, said, you shouldn't apologize. Remember? Indulge. Do what thou wilt. And I know there's different interpretations of Aleister Crowley. And I was involved in the OTO a little bit here in Atlanta.
What is that?
The thelema. So it's based on Aleister Crowley, and we went to rituals, and I was I can't remember the term, acolyte or something, but
yeah, that would make sense. I think that is it.
It's I can't remember now, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
if you were a WWE nerd like myself, there was a team called the Acolytes, and that was their whole imagery was all that sort of stuff.
It's not that. It's a Minerval or something like that.
Oh,
but,
okay.
And listen to this. In that group here in Atlanta, they've had suicides, incest, all kinds of. And listen, I know there's some good people in it too. There's some sober people. I was friends with some of the people in that OTO in Atlanta, Dove and Serpent. But look at the destruct. Look at the harm this causes people. When people deconvert, let's interview their wives and kids, see how they feel. Let's talk to that guy from I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Talk to his wife, and his parents. See how they feel. Because I know I hurt everybody in my life. But remember, Anton LaVey said, you don't have to apologize. If you want to hate, there's no conviction. There's no, do what you want to do. That's what Nietzsche would do. Nietzsche wouldn't apologize. So remember, I had that in my spirit when I met Tracy. And no wonder this happened. So after that divorce, I realized, God, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
What have I done? What have I done? And so my family is overjoyed. My kids are happy that I'm back in the church. They are very plugged in. All my kids are Orthodox. They love the faith. Yes. And my family is so happy for me now. And I don't carry around that weight, that baggage of resentment. Now when I go to Home Depot, I smile at people.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a homeless person out front, I don't kick him.
Mm-hmm.
Like Zena said, I heard them say, Peter Gilmore, Boyd Rice said, why would I volunteer at a homeless shelter? Why would I feed the hungry? I don't want to get my hands dirty. That's what Christians and sheep do. If you see a homeless person, kick them. You're the strong wolf. Don't look over your shoulder. So I had that. And I think, and I'm almost finished. One of the biggest influences of my life was Vengeance Rising. And their singer sort of had a dramatic deconversion too. And the guy was my hero. And it's all over the internet. And he's done interviews. But he did the same thing. He did the same thing that all these guys that deconvert. This new one, Dave Warnock. And this one here, Tim Sledge. All Southern Baptist evangelicals that
really
deconvert. Oh yeah, there's piles of books like this. This one, Billy Graham's roommate, Charles Templeton. Very well done. This one was very unsettling because of some of the stories in it. But yeah, but you know what? These people have never encountered Orthodoxy. They don't know what mystical theology of the Eastern Church is.
Right.
By Vladimir Orlovsky.
Right.
They've never read Father Seraphim Rose. It's a different paradigm. And so, over the years, I kept thinking, man, these bikers, man, maybe these biker dudes see something I missed. Because they're all wearing, I remember the vice president pulled a Death to the World button off his battle jacket and handed it to me and said, maybe that's where you should belong, son. And if we were going to be Christians, we'd be Orthodox. I'll never forget. And they all have Bible college degrees and everything too.
Wow.
Very intelligent. Oh yeah, they're pastors' kids. That's what we do. When pastors' kids rebel, we do stupid stuff. Like getting tattooed and joining cults.
Yes.
So that's it. That's if I had to summarize.
That's it. Yeah.
That's if I had to summarize it in a short version, that's really my story. So I'm here because I want to warn people about tarot cards and psychics and Satanism, even this trendy Satanism, because there's different kinds. There's theistic Satanism, like Michael Aquino and the Temple of Set. And then there's the trendy kind from Salem, who think it's metaphor and just an archetype, and it's more of a social thing to scare evangelicals.
Is the spirit within, let's see, I don't know exactly how to properly ask this, but is there a feminine, well, you mentioned the breast milk thing. Is there a feminine spirit? Is it a matriarchy of sorts? Because I ask that because the trendy, if you will, spirituality or satanic or witchy stuff, it's often women that kind of get bogged down in this, like, worshiping the stars and the moon and blah, 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 I'm a witch or whatever. What is that correlation?
I meet girls all the time who have their little cute deck of tarot cards that they bought at Walmart.
Yeah.
But my deck was the dark, hateful kind that my deck was $1,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I meet girls all the time and they go to the palm reader and they go to their psychic or they do a reading, but it's all sort of cute. It's not really angry and rebellious. Some of the guys in Virginia make their own tarot decks.
Okay.
So a lot of a rune set, they do something called galdering, and they'll do an incantation and then they'll read the runes and interpret it. And I had manuals and grimoires for all that stuff. But yeah, there is a sort of cute, harmless. They think it's kind of a lot of the girls, women. I got a friend, he's seen a girl right now and they did like an incantation and summoned her dead father and did a tarot reading and stuff. And these are words, this is what he told me. I'm not making it up. I'm not gossiping. But my concern is this is going to bring harm in you.
Yes.
It will.
Yes.
It will. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, he said the same thing. There is, you might think it's cute and trendy, but there's a dark side. And all of a sudden you let this in your heart, man. You get it in your soul.
Mm-hmm. I have to tell you about something to help you out. the world's largest offshore event taking place entirely online. You hear that? Online. From October 7th through 11th. It's going to be put on by our friend Mikkel Thorop, host of the Expat Money Show, the highly sought after expat consultant with over 2 decades of experience. In this offshore event online, like we said, you will discover why international diversification is a must for those looking to preserve their liberty and wealth. You will learn everything you need to know about crafting your perfect plan B. We all should have that. Maybe plan C, plan D, and so on. How to quickly acquire a second passport, diversify your finances offshore, invest in international real estate, and get in-depth insights on geopolitics from world-renowned experts. And these are the actual real experts, not the trust the experts kind that we've been promised to trust. Headline speakers include Dr. Ron Paul, Doug Casey, friend of the show Scott Horton, Tom Woods, Mark Faber, Tom Luongo. A lot of those names have been on this show, so you guys are going to want to tune into this online, like we said, October 7th through 11th. To reserve your complimentary ticket, head over to expatmoneysummit.com. That is expatmoneysummit.com. Let's get back to the show. There's a lot to, I hate this word, so journalistic. There's a lot to unpack there, but there is, for lack of a better term, there's a few things that I want the audience to know as well as myself to kind of figure out. And I told you offline, there were some things you wrote and I'm like, I'm not sure what that is, but I didn't want to do a pre-interview discussion because I want to learn as you say the things, and I want my audience to learn. And I'm sure most of them are smarter than me, so they're familiar with some of these. But I mentioned it earlier: Assemblies of God. So is that the Southern Baptist Convention? What is Assemblies of God? I wasn't familiar with that.
You used to go to John Hagee's Cornerstone, right?
Yes.
Okay. The Foursquare, Amy Semple McPherson, the Church of God, and the Assemblies of God originated at Azusa Street. Well, it started at Azusa Street when William Seymour when they had the revival in California.
Okay.
And they're late to the party too, by Pentecostals. They've only been around about 100 years-ish. So the Azusa Street revival was maybe 100 years ago.
Okay.
Or a little over 100 years ago. So that's the Assemblies of God are it's very similar to the Church of God. Speak in tongues. They're not charismatics. I got to emphasize that.
Okay.
The Benny Hinn's, the Catherine Kuhlmans.
Yes.
They didn't like that.
Okay.
They didn't like that. They were more and they love John Hagee. My word. Yes.
Okay.
My aunt works there. So I met Jimmy Swaggart when I was a kid. My first concert was Jimmy Swaggart playing piano. Beautiful music. I still listen to his gospels. Great music. Great music. I'll get in trouble at church for saying that. But I can't help it. It's in my blood. So that's where the Assemblies of God is a Pentecostal. And I'm seeing more and more of the consumer trendiness coming in. When I was a kid, you would never see like women wearing or people with banners. The women didn't wear makeup. Their hair was long. It was very rural, very rural. My family's heroes were A.A. Allen and the old like Oral Roberts. Yep. They liked the more and like women preachers. They didn't go with that. But now I'm seeing the American culture and consumerism creep in, and so the Church of God, Assemblies of God churches look just like the other evangelical, softcore, baby pool. And I'm not being judgmental. Okay, I was raised around this, so
sure.
There's some good people.
Yep.
But that's what the Assemblies of God is. When I was raised in it, it was tongues, prophecy, and healing. Big on healing. You got to have healing, and your prayer cloth, and praise God. Hey man, Brother Buck, you need to reach into your billfold and get that $10 bill out, Brother Buck, and you put it in that tie, brother, and you're going to see a harvest, son. So that's what I was raised.
Yes.
Sorry for that.
No, that was pretty good. I think you've been around it a little bit. Would you call that, and again, excuse my ignorance for people listening, the prosperity gospel sort of stuff? Is that?
Okay, you're going to get into Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, and Jesse Duplantis.
Kenneth
I've
Copeland.
been to Creflo Dollar's house.
Okay.
You didn't know it. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, the prosperity gospel is your health and wealth stuff, and Mike Murdoch was big into that too. He's another name. I met all these people over the years because they would come to our church in Alabama, or we would travel to see them. But we were more like King James only fundamentalists.
Yes.
My grandfather, we had so many schisms. Man, listen. One time, my mom said the preacher winked at her from the pulpit, so we had to change churches again. And then it was constant. We church hopped every couple of years because there was a scandal or some sort of doctrinal innovation.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so finally, at the end, we had to start our own Assemblies of God, even though there were 10 others in the town.
Wow.
Because we couldn't get along with it.
Right.
So that's what happened. So it's...
Go ahead.
No. That's pretty much it.
Okay. I have in my notes 1999. Is that when you first discovered Orthodoxy with Father?
That's when I met Father Barnabas.
Okay.
Okay. I was like Hank Hanegraaff or Ravi or William Lane Craig. Those were my heroes. And so I was always debating Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. So I would sit with Jehovah's Witnesses and we would be screaming at each other, emotional, sweating. They had their Bible and I had my King James. And I remember thinking, God, Sola Scriptura is a problem. Like we're both screaming and we all have these Bibles and all these denominations and spinoffs all are reading the same Bible in English, I might add. So when I met Barnabas, he started talking to me about liturgics and sacrament and sobriety, which I didn't know what spiritual sobriety was. Contemplative Christianity, Eucharistic Christianity, and all that. I was raised to be very judgmental about because it's Catholic, remember?
Mm-hmm.
We need to reclaim that word. The word Catholic's a good word.
Right.
It is.
Lowercase Catholic.
Yes. Remember what Luther said. The problem with the Pope is not that he's Catholic. He's not Catholic enough. He's Roman Catholic.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I met Barnabas and I had these frustrations with Sola Scriptura. And I remember meeting Tim LaHaye and all the Left Behind people. And I was like really I went to see the Omega Code and I was on TBN a bunch of times. And they even had me one time reading a teleprompter, pretending to be a missionary. I'd never been to India. And so I had people at Bible college saying, Brother Sanders, what was it like to go to India, brother? And I said, I was just reading the teleprompter.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
They were shocked. I have people to this day say, there's no way that you're lying. There's no way you were reading a teleprompter because the Holy Ghost moved you, son. There's no way you would lie, Brother Sanders.
Oh my goodness.
It's not really a lie. You're pitching a new product.
Yes.
So Dr. Stanley had a new VHS and a new book that he didn't write. His ghostwriters at Thomas Nelson wrote the book, by the way. There's a spoiler. Ghostwriters. So what was your question?
Just leading in from that stuff into talking with Father Barnabas Powell. So you're saying Sola Scriptura was kind of a problem.
So it all started with me arguing with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
And I was married to one. I know their doctor inside now. Oh, my word. I remember I had another friend that went to Candler at Emory. He's a Church of Christ pastor. He loves the liturgy and he's big on Eucharist. And his name's Tom, great guy. And he had read about Orthodoxy at Emory. And him and Barnabas said, you need to start looking at liturgical churches that have a more fuller understanding of the Christian tradition. You need to start reading some church history. Irenaeus, Polycarp, Clement, Ignatius, Athanasius, and even Augustine. I was reading Augustine, all that too. But I started discovering patristic theology. And read all the apostolic fathers, the desert fathers. And then I realized, man, I'm missing something, because the Eucharist was the focal point of the Christian worship for centuries. Not Thomas, not your hipster comedian preacher, not your fancy presentation on the screen, not Starbucks, not bagels, not donuts. The presence of Christ in the Eucharist, it's all in the church fathers. And so I started like, whoa, okay, yeah, there is something wrong with sola scriptura. Like, am I my own pope? And so, yeah, I started reading Alexander Schmemann, and I met Thomas Hopko, and Barnabas sort of shepherded us into the Orthodox Church. And so we ended up there. A bunch of us did. From Bible college, all of my Pentecostal friends converted. There was like 10 of us, I think, in all. If you count their wives and kids, maybe 20.
Wow. Okay. And then, see, it's interesting and rare for me, at least in my experience so far. I get you're saying, I mean, we just saw those books, all the defectors from, let's say, the SBC and whatnot. I hadn't heard too many people find the Orthodox Church and then also leave. I mean, I've seen it very, very, very few times.
Okay, here's why I did it.
Okay.
Trying to save my marriage. Like I said, we had the worst arguments of our relationship. 16 years together. Listen, the most emotional arguments we had were over my hunger for orthodoxy. She was happy at Michael Youssef's. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I've talked to Michael Youssef myself about orthodoxy. His family were Coptic Orthodox for 8 centuries, I think. Great guy. I like him. Great guy. In fact, Barnabas used to work for him too. But that's why I left. I was like, okay, she's not happy. We'll quit going. Maybe she'll be happy. But she wasn't. So.
All right. And then was that the transitioning slowly into the occult type stuff at some point after that?
No, that's why the biker guys, the biker club,
okay.
They were really into runology and Stephen Flowers books and Asatru and reclaiming the Germanic pagan religions. Odin, Thor, Freya, all the rune, Futhark, all the elder and younger Futhark, and they were designing their own runes and stuff, and sigil magic, and all this was new to me too. Remember, I'm a former pastor's kid, and I don't have any exposure to these scary rituals. They were cutting themselves too, and drinking mead from horns. So all this was like, whoa, man, yeah, I'm gonna dip my toe in this. And so I because their dad was Orthodox, I was like, well, maybe this is my next step in my evolution, spiritual evolution. So I did that for years, 4 or 5 years. Studied it copiously. And my personality, I just don't dip my toe in. I don't dip my toe.
I noticed, right?
I'm full on. It's full on. Like, if I'm going to be Orthodox, I'm in the monastery. I'm not,
well, you were a
half
reader.
Cocked.
Sure.
I'm not half cocked.
Right.
I mean, it's all the way.
No
like,
half-assed occult stuff for you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So what is, there's some stuff you wrote to me in the email, and you've mentioned a few of the things here. What is the left-hand path?
The left-hand path is a term used to denote the dangerous, forbidden arts like alchemy. So there's a right-hand path and a left-hand path. Right-hand path would be like your Walmart tarot cards.
Oh, okay.
That's
like the Ouija board.
Safe.
Okay.
That's your safe. Yeah, that's your Walmart, Amazon Ouija board. Your left-hand path would be out in the woods, fasting for a week, naked, cutting yourself and invoking Odin and channeling Odin so you can become Odin. That's left-hand path. The dangerous, extreme side of the occult.
Okay. Did you, in your experience, was it common for someone to start on what you're saying is the right-hand path and then work their way over to the left?
I'm not an expert on this. I think a lot of it, that's the understanding of my term. And there was a time where people thought Jesus said the goats would be on his left and the sheep would be on his right. So the left-hand path, I don't think that's how they view it, but that's one way of understanding it.
All right. And then
but I don't think that's an official thing. But that I don't know. I don't know if that could happen. But most people have a very they just think that metaphysical stuff, astrology, and
yes,
and like to them, to a lot of people, a lot of the girls I meet, and you're right, a lot of this is the women. It goes along with Starbucks, yoga, psychics, tarot cards, Netflix, Georgia football. It's all in some mishmash, scrambled up mumbo jumbo, and they don't take it as seriously as those dudes. And there's a coven here too. The Temple of Set and the OTO. Now those people are true left-hand path. They're not the trendy kind.
Okay. And this word was in your email, and I did a private Zoom session with my Patreon supporters a week or two ago, and our guest was Jamie Hanshaw, Jay Dyer's wife. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's very knowledgeable on the things we're talking about, occult symbolism, and especially within movies and music and whatnot.
I watched it, yeah.
I mentioned to her, I call it thelema. You said thelema. At the time, I was like, I don't even know what this is. And she's like, you don't know what thelema is? Can you talk about that and what that is as well?
I remember when I met Nurgle from the band Behemoth. He was swimming at the swimming pool. We were in Charlotte for the Slayer show. He had a giant thelema symbol on his back. Nurgle.
What does that symbol look like?
I've got one on my leg. It's like a hexagram looking thing.
Okay.
And it originates with Aleister Crowley. I think his book is called The Book of the Law. And he was a pig too, a moral animal. But thelema is the term used. It's like that. Thelema would be what the OTO is doing, the Dove and Serpent thelema group here in Atlanta, and it's basically based on Crowley. And I don't remember all the I don't remember all the details right now about where the word comes from, but I'm sure it's something he cooked up probably.
So was it?
It comes from the phrase "love is the law, love under will." That's what it comes from. That's their mantra. Love is the law, love under will. Do what thou wilt, as long as you're doing it in a magic, as long as you're doing it like in a magic working. But you shouldn't harm people, and in harm none. Do what thou wilt is what they say. So mote it to be.
Okay. That's weird. There's like a strain of libertarianism in that philosophy.
Oh, totally. They're all yes.
Okay. Interesting. I've also got in here in my notes that you were obviously you talked about it, the Christopher Hitchens and whatnot. So you were, I guess, what you would consider a hardcore atheist at some point as well.
I didn't use that word for myself. I was more of a free-thinking agnostic.
Okay.
And the guys in Virginia never called themselves atheists either.
They
hated that word.
I was going to say, yeah, it seemed
they despise Dawkins. They even though they're not Christians, they can't stand. And there's John Loftus. I read all his books had an impact on me too. So it was Hitchens, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, and John Loftus. He runs the page Debunking Christianity. It's a blog.
Okay.
And I read all his books. Some of these books are hard to read. They're emotional. Like these people who deconvert. This is a very, very emotional book. They made him wear William Branham's shoes while he preached to channel his anointing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh man, there's so many places to go. Okay, another one. I didn't know this word. Asatru. What is that?
That would be your Norse mythology. That would be
is.
your Eddas, the poetic Edda and the prose Edda and the Heimskringla, the sagas of the Norse kings. So I read, and then Stephen Flowers is probably the world's expert. He's a PhD, very intelligent when it comes to the runes and the Icelandic sagas and the Icelandic sigils and sigil magic and the Visor, the Icelandic helm of awe symbol. All that is also true. It's like if you see runes, like on some of the death metal bands.
I was just going to say, this sounds like the Icelandic death metal stuff is what I'm picturing now.
Yes, yes, they're totally in the, it's Norse Germanic and Norse mythology. So, and it comes from the Eddas, the poetic Edda and the prose Edda. And I know there's more. If people are watching this and they say, well, no, you forgot something. I know. These are all short answers. You can expand this and take up 2 hours.
Of course.
On thelema just itself, but I'm condensing it.
Was there this is going to really be niche for some of my listeners, but subculture stuff. When I would see the skinheads that were of the racist variety, they tended to have the Thor's hammer.
Oh, yeah,
and
they
stuff.
all did, yeah.
Was there a crossover with that sort of, let's say, white power Nazi kind of neo-Nazi scene and some of this Asutra stuff?
There is. There's a movement to reclaim the runes with some of the hipster tarot card soccer mom people.
Okay.
That are into that stuff, and that's fine. I'm glad they're not hateful. But for me personally, I hated everybody, not just a certain race. So the metal bands I was listening to, like, especially, I better be careful. I don't want to say I don't want to get in trouble, but there are certain death metal bands from Florida, there's a clue, that are pure hate. They hate everybody.
Okay.
So I just had this, like I said, after I got disillusioned and my wife would not convert, she hated the church. And I was like, God, you led me here. I'm at Barnabas and I feel convinced in my heart, this is where we should be as a family. And she hates it. And then I was reading Dawkins and then LaVey, and they said, well, you know what? Hey, maybe you should have fun. Maybe you should indulge. So that's where, and then the guy from Vengeance, he did the same thing. And so I was like, well, if he did it, I can do it. And you know what? Xena says it's okay. Who cares if I hurt people? So,
wow. Okay.
That's where a lot of the Asatru, the Thor's hammer, and the skinhead people, they have that resentment, hate. And I pray for those people, and they need love. That's a cry for love. That's a cry for help, by the way.
Yes.
The hatred and the vehemence and the toxic, loud hate. That's a cry for help too. Tattooing your body up, hurting yourself and cutting yourself with tattoo. That's a cry for help too. That's a desperate cry for help.
Let's talk about this. Another thing you mentioned, I was not familiar with, ATL, the Free Thought Society. What is that?
Oh, those are some hipster humanists here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Nice folks, but I've tried to debate them too. And they're this is what I told them. Your version of humanism and Christianity are the same thing. You just don't have Christ.
Okay.
But everything, you guys are Christians without Christ. Humanism and Christianity, the kind you and I, the American consumer, trendy, you're in bed. You guys are in bed together. You're the same thing without Christ. And I would bring in the Satanism. I'd bring in the death metal bands and the black metal bands and say, okay, these guys are atheists and they hate people. They say if you see a homeless person, kick them. Only the strong should survive. It's social Darwinism. Oh, they freak out. They lose their minds when you bring up "Might is Right" by Ragnar Redbeard. Oh, they lose their minds. And we're the real atheists because we love and we believe in social justice and all those things. Loving people, all that's fine. But I gave talks there, and so I think I sent you some proof that I gave talks.
Yes.
But they're so sweet people. They meet in the old Presbyterian church. And I don't, like I said, they are polite, nice people, but they're all very passionate and very preachy about abortion and gay, the pride, and very, very, I remember one of the guys in the bike club said, I don't care about people. If you don't have that patch on, you're a stranger. My own mom and dad could come out here without that rocker on. They're strangers. I'll kick them in the head if they come here. And I tell that to the pre-thought people, they can't comprehend that there's flavors of atheism that actually hate people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go talk to the members of Mayhem from Norway. See how humanistic they are. They're not. Let's talk to Boyd Rice. Would you ever volunteer at a soup kitchen? No. Why would I get my hands dirty? That's for Christians. But the humanists at the Atlanta Free Thought, they would do those things. So there's and I tried to show this to them, and they didn't. It just went right over their heads. Because then there's only one way to be an atheist. There's only one way to be an atheist, and that's their kind. But if you show them these death metal and black metal bands, like Deicide, Glenn Benton, they can't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a response. They don't need to have one. I mean, it's their business. It's a free country.
Then let's get to July 4th, Independence Day, 2022. What happened?
Okay, so when I gave my confession, I was very emotional and ashamed of the sacrilegious things I'd done. There's a band called Batushka from Poland. They dress like Orthodox monks, and all their icons are inverted. Blood is coming out of their eyes on the iconography. It looks Byzantine. I met them too. I told them they knew who Father Seraphim was too. These guys in Batushka. And St. John the Wonder Worker. They knew who he was. And what was my point?
Just your emotions pouring into your life confession at that point with the monks.
Okay, so I had done all this stuff like Batushka, and I'd even done some sacrilegious blasphemous stuff. And they said, at the end of this, they said, you need to get baptized because you have gone so far. We want you to feel washed. And I've been chrismated and stuff. And I wish they'd have baptized me in the OCA because I received a heterodox baptism. Yeah. And I don't want to bring shame on my family. I'm proud. I got baptized in the Nazarene tradition, which is very uncharacteristic of my family. Mm-hmm. That's where I discovered these Christian metal bands. And I'm proud of that. But they said, look, you've gone. You need like a complete reboot. You need to be re-engineered. You need to be rebuilt. And so they dunked me, man. Let me tell you something. The grace and the forgiveness and the love washed over me. And I felt reborn, man. And it's been 2.5 years. I'm still plugged in. My kids are back in. We all receive communion. It's fantastic. And so that's just my own personal, private view of other people. I don't want to get into a debate on the chrismation thing. It's not up to me.
Right.
But I know personally, with what I know now and experienced, I wish they would have baptized me originally. I wish there was more Slavonic. I wish there was. I think Orthodoxy should change us. We don't change it, and so I'm seeing a little bit of trendiness, consumerism, kind of maybe a little bit of. I think it was Shane that said, "I see some of this marketing, this evangelical marketing, kind of sneaking in." So, yeah,
it's a tricky path for sure.
Did I answer? I hope I answered your question.
And I want to. It seems like the satanic stuff, the occult stuff. Do with as thou wilt, and it doesn't matter if you're angry at people, you don't have to say sorry. It seems like a complete, and this might be stating the obvious, but let's state it, an inversion of true Christianity. And I suspect that's by design.
Yeah, that would be fair, I think. Yeah. They have rituals and liturgies, and they fast too. The ones I've met in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Don't drink. They're all straight edge.
Wow.
Yeah. You're supposed to be a room. Odin, and now they drink the mead, but that's it.
Okay.
It's like a cult. They have their own beer, their own books, and yeah, it's like that. But yeah.
What are some life lessons, let's say, or maybe spiritual lessons you've taken from this entire journey to where you're at now, looking back, and just, I would say, to a younger inquirer, really, it doesn't have to be advice, but just some lessons that you've learned?
Well, listen, I think love and grace is what we should show the world. And I think Orthodoxy does that. I think Orthodoxy is offering America in the world something pure and unique and noble. And I think we should show people love, resentment, like Zena. And I know Zena's a Buddhist now. Like I said, this could be a 5-hour conversation. But resentment and hate hurts people, and it hurts yourself. You can't go through life hating people. You should pray for people who mistreat you and show love to people. Not judgment. Don't judge. Don't judge people. You can be hard on yourself, but don't judge other people. You're supposed to love people. And that's what the death metal and black metal, and that's what the people at the Atlanta Free Thought don't understand. That there are people like the guys from Marduk who said, I don't need a God, I already am one.
Yes.
Let that I want people to really ponder that statement. Because if you're your own God, you can do whatever you want. There's no consequences. There's no legal consequences. Well, how dare they arrest me? I'm a God.
Mm-hmm.
How dare I mistreat this girl? How dare I mean, what? Excuse me, I need to rephrase that. What's wrong with hurting? What's wrong with stealing? If you leave your phone or your wallet somewhere, Buck, I should take it because you're the weakling.
And you're the wolf.
I'm the wolf. I'm the Uberman. Right. So if you leave your wallet somewhere like at a concert, you deserve to have it taken. Mm. And I'm not going to apologize because I'm a God, remember? So I think that we need to caution people about that, the occult stuff and the hate, but we need to really love people. We need to show people love and grace. And I hope that's what people experience when they come to the Orthodox Church.
And we should also say, none of these things that we were discussing, the occult stuff, the bands, we are not trying to place a cool light on any of this. In fact, I know Elias is doing quite the opposite, but just, people are going to go, you should have even discussed it. We're not talking about it because we want you to go check it out. Could you speak to that, obviously? Oh, sure. Well,
these guys are very talented. I've seen Mayhem and Deicide and Morbid Angel. And there's some good Christian bands that you can listen to.
Like, yeah, you just went to a Christian metal fest, didn't you?
In Ohio, I saw Tourniquet and Deliverance. And so there's a lot of bands. There's some Orthodox metal bands.
Yes.
Bass player of Tourniquet. He converted to Orthodoxy. And Bill Tassamis from Warlord, he was Orthodox. He was Greek Orthodox. And the guys from Crimson Moonlight, they're all Orthodox too, from Sweden. Great positive music, positive lyrics, wholesomeness, beauty, love. But no, we're not glamorizing these bands. I don't have this stuff in my home anymore because I don't want hatred in my home. I don't want it coming into my soul and spirit. And I know they're not every single band's like that. I'm painting broad strokes, but
sure.
There are some bands that we shouldn't listen to because it is pure hate. And they say it's hate. I'm not putting words in it.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that's like, I want to tell atheists or, people who say they're atheists, it's like, you can let's say, discount the spiritual warfare stuff that's going on. But the people that are bad, they don't, and run a lot of these things, they don't discount it. Like, you can do it if you want, but you're basically, as it's been put, you're fighting in a war and you don't know the war is happening. You're just wandering around going, oh, everything's cool. And it's like, well, it's there whether you want to recognize it or not, let's say.
And I just want to say thank you for having me on your show and letting me share my story. I really care about people. I don't want to see people hurt the same way I hurt. I want to warn and caution people. There was a guy with a big Baphomet t-shirt on I saw a few months ago. And I said, you're not going to get sober praying and having the Baphomet as your higher power. And I gave him a Death to the World flyer.
Excellent.
I have a pack of them. I keep them. I have them with me now. So I'm always handing out stuff.
Good.
I'm almost like a Jehovah's Witness. I always have stuff giving. I'm always giving to people.
Excellent.
Fearless.
I suppose if there's anything you'd like to plug, I always give this time to do so. I don't know that you have a big online presence, but you're welcome to.
Well, we used to have a YouTube channel, The Corroded Metalhead, and we did album reviews and we did rituals and stuff. And so I took that down, but we still have, we have footage of Archbishop Dimitri on there. We have rare footage from Father Seraphim Rose's monastery on there. It's called The Corroded Metalhead.
Got it. I'll link to that.
So, and there's funny exposés of Pentecostals, Robert Tilton, and stuff like that. Yeah, those are all on there too. But when I worked at In Touch, I had unprecedented access to Dr. Stanley's library. He had a copy of Gospel of Thomas he had a translation of Gospel of Thomas that's very, very hard. But I was always getting free media from news stations and The Door magazine. You ever heard of The Door magazine?
I've not.
Okay, you got to look this up. They had a satire that they had this like religious satire magazine, and then they also they would help NBC and ABC expose corrupt televangelists like Benny Hinn. Yeah. And so they were sending me all this free stuff. For years, I had libraries of Digibeta, beta tapes, and Betamax tapes and stuff. And I finally put them on YouTube. So I've got hours and hours of news footage of Robert Tilton and Benny Hinn and all that stuff. So it's like expose stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
From The Door. And The Door doesn't exist anymore.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
You should look it up. The Door magazine.
I'm going to. Yeah, I just wrote that down.
They were the Monty Python, but they were Christians. They were like real Christians, but they had a homeless ministry. They had this magazine called The Door, and it was all satire, making fun of evangelicals. Wow. You got to look it up.
Will do. Elias Sanders, thanks for being here. Thanks for telling this story, man.
God bless you. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope you guys got a lot out of that chat with Elias Sanders. What a crazy story. As for this show, counterflowpodcast.com. Follow me on Twitter @BuckRebel, BuckRebel. Join our Telegram group. Follow me on the Counterflow Instagram account. Join our Patreon page. All of the above. It's great to have you with us. Until next week, you guys have a good one.
You get split in half, like on the hologram graph. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.